On Thursday, Trump Organization executive, or I should say former executive, Alan Weisselberg, pleaded guilty to 15 criminal tax fraud charges. Oh, interesting. So now those charges allege that he and the Trump Organization had schemed together to evade federal, state, and local taxes. So this is a tax fraud charge. Okay. Now, Weisselberg, 75, who started working for the Trump family nearly 50 years ago and served as its longtime CFO, admitted to omitting about $1.7 million in personal income from his tax filings between 2005 and 2021. He agreed to full repayment of taxes due plus interest totaling nearly $2 million. All right. Now, look, this is part of the result of the expected plea agreement with Weisselberg and is contingent, because this is very important, contingent that he testify in a criminal trial against the Trump Organization. Now, again, important to note, this is not against Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump is not going to get in trouble for this, but his organization very well could. Very well could. So now that, again, it could even lead to the possible dissolution of the Trump Organization. Trump's business empire gone. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case. We're going to have to see. Nonetheless, very serious charges with this tax evasion. More details. Now, the plea agreement requires that Weisselberg testify truthfully if called to take the stand in a criminal fraud trial scheduled to proceed against the Trump Organization. Jury selection in the case is scheduled for October 24th, and Weisselberg's official sentencing, tentatively agreed to as a split sentence, including 5 months incarceration and 5 years probation, is postponed until after that trial, although a judge mentioned a sentencing date of November 17th during Thursday's proceedings. Again, we don't necessarily know when the sentencing is, okay? Now, prosecutors recommended a split sentence of 6 months imprisonment and 5 years in probation. Weisselberg's attorney told the judge that he agreed to a 5-month incarceration. However, prosecutors said sentencing would happen at the conclusion of the Trump Organization trial because the agreement is contingent upon Weisselberg's follow-through with testimony in the case. So that is, of course, smart. They're using it as leverage for his testimony if he does not come clear. Because understand, in order to make a plea deal, to plead down your sentence, you've got to have some pretty good information, or the prosecutors have to believe that you have some sort of information that will help their case against the organization itself. And so, okay, now I like how they use the leverage because they're afraid of that Mr. Weisselberg is going to lie to them, which is, again, very, very, very likely because they're all liars. Again, lying to the federal government for years and years on their tax forms in order to pocket personal income. Yeah, giant lies. And so, of course, I wouldn't trust them. So this makes sense. This makes sense a lot. Now, that said, 5 months, that's nothing. That's super, super easy. Oh, kid gloves, slap on the wrist. Not happy at all about that, okay? Now, the Manhattan District Attorney Office alleged in their indictment that Weisselberg and the Trump Organization participated together in a scheme to disguise this employment compensation that went then unreported to tax authorities. Weisselberg illegally failed to report indirect payments by the Trump Organization that should have been reported as income. According to the indictment, payments went from the Trump Organization to support Weisselberg's Upper West Side, New York City apartment, tuition payments for his grandchildren, and Mercedes cars for himself and his wife. As for the Trump Organization, prosecutors alleged the company failed to pay payroll taxes for the compensation in question and to withhold income taxes on wages, salaries, and bonuses paid to Weisselberg and other employees. So now, here's the thing. I mentioned how this is super, 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 super light. Okay? Normally, if you're a normal, average human being, if you misrepresent financial details or conceal that information, you could get 5 years in prison. 5 to 15. So look, that's an issue. That's an issue. Again, on average, those facing jail time for just tax evasion, and again, it all depends on the amounts and the time that it was evaded and the methods used to do so. But generally, for you, it's around 3 to 5 years in prison. This guy gets a plea deal for 5 months. Oh, that's got to be a real sweet deal. Now, of course, there is, again, conditions. If he gets caught up in a lie, or if his information is not as good as he claims it is, or he fails to pay what he owes in taxes, well, there could be some pretty bad consequences for it. During the hearing, District Judge Juan Merchan advised Weisselberg that he could spend in between 5 and 15 years in prison, saying, quote, "If you fail to testify truthfully at the upcoming trial of the Trump Organization, I would then not be bound by my sentence promise." Well, if that's the case, well, then we're talking. Then we're talking. Because look, my biggest concern here would be, yeah, getting this super nice deal, maybe getting out early for good behavior, and then not being honest when he testifies. And so if they had sentenced him before his testimony, afraid that, he would just go and he would lie, and then he'd be like, what are you going to do? I'm going to serve my time, my 5 months, and then get out. Thankfully, I'm not the only one who had that concern. That said, we're going to see if his testimony is worth that really, really good plea deal, and if he actually does intend to flip on the organization itself when it goes to court in October, November-ish. So we'll see what happens.